breaking the silence, taking the dive in. Nikki pulling strings like she playing the violin. Made in his likeness, radiant vibrance. Give them all glory, ain't no way to deny it. She gon' make you laugh, she gon' stimulate your mind. Making things shake, she ain't in no wasting time. They can come close, but can't imitate the grind. Got a different way to illustrate and innovate designs. BTS podcast, gotta watch that. Teaching us the game, that mean Nikki got class. If you watch it once, you gon' wanna stop back. This an opportunity that you cannot pass. Unleash your inner voice, cause better days coming. Better days, get ready for better days. Better days, better days. Better days, get ready for better days. Better days, better days.
Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Silence, the podcast where the light shines on amazing people who are doing amazing things. I'm your host, Arthur Nikki Nicole, and today I have an episode for you. I'm the voice of the Carolinas, and I believe every voice has power, every story has purpose, and every truth deserves to be heard. So each week, I sit down with change makers, leaders, creatives, and everyday heroes who are making a difference and making bold moves, breaking barriers, and leaving behind legacies. So get ready because today's guest is about to inspire, uplift, and remind you why your voice matters. Today, I'm sitting down and I'm honored to be sitting down with Miss Gail Ferguson Jones. She is a peer recovery, she's a peer recovery and wellness coach, best-selling author, award-winning journalist. Come on through now. Speaker and podcaster. She wears many, many hats. Her story of healing, advocacy, and purpose is powerful. And I can't wait for you to hear it. So sit back and let's continue to break the silence together. So after her countdown, please welcome this amazing woman to the platform. Hey, Miss Gail, how you doing today?
Very good, very good. Excited about this opportunity to share and hope that someone is touched by what I have
Absolutely.
to say.
Absolutely. So tell everybody. Now, I sat down, I did my homework. Before you even sent me those links, I was already researching, finding out, because you said I've been on many, many podcasts. So I was trying to research and find out who Miss Gail Ferguson Jones was. Your story is amazing. 3 generations. I
Yes.
was like, oh my goodness. So tell everybody a little bit about your story and how you got where you are today to be this amazing woman that you are.
So, my maternal grandmother, my father, and my husband all had drinking problems. They were all alcoholics, and actually, all three of them lost their lives to illness caused by alcohol addiction. So that means going back to my maternal grandmother that I've been living with this family disease my entire life. And going back even farther, because what people don't realize is that because my mother was raised by an alcoholic mother, that's another layer
Mm-hmm.
in how she raised me and what her all mothers, we have our life before we had kids and how we were affected by our parents. So that was another, these are my very, very closest loved ones,
Mm.
my very closest loved ones. So, there was chaos. There was dysfunction from an early age. For a little while, my grandmother lived with us when I was about in second grade. And I really didn't know her because her and my mother were estranged before that, because my grandmother was always burning bridges with everybody
Wow.
because of her issues. And so finally, nobody wanted to take her in. So my mother was always a dutiful daughter. She took her in to live with us. And I'm telling you, all hell broke loose in my life, to the point where my teacher called my mother. We were living in Brooklyn. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. And my teacher, thank goodness she didn't call authorities. She called my mother because I was always, an A student and at the top of my class and an eager little beaver in class. And she called my mother and said, I don't know what's going on in your household, but it's really affecting Gail. She is not the same child. And I'm not going to get in your business. I'm just saying that you need to handle your business.
Wow.
And so my mother had to send my grandmother packing again to the next relative.
Wow.
So, we live with, alcohol's legal, and it's sold as a good time, and it's sold as, blowing off some steam and a stress reliever. And there's no understanding. It's still a poison.
Mm-hmm.
It's a toxin that's being fed into your nervous system. And so we, those of us who are family members and loved ones, we wonder what's wrong with them. Why won't they stop doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they? And we take it personally.
Yes, yes. Now, to anyone that's never been through addiction, tell them how that feels, because I say all the time, that person that's dealing with that addiction, that's not my family, that's not my so and so, because they're different.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
tell everybody what that feels like, to go through addiction and be a different person, but then everybody on the outside is thinking that, what, it's just that easy just to stop.
Yes. So, I'm going to skip a little bit forward to make that point. Because I had another experience with my husband when I realized they can't just stop. This is when I'm saying the brain is hijacked, the nervous system. So we all know that people who take heroin, we know they can't stop because they get sick. And, it's really, withdrawal is really painful. But what I didn't know until it happened to me with my husband is the same thing happens with alcohol. A person can die going 24 hours without alcohol. They can't just stop. They have to be medically detoxed. So when they're continuing to drink, it's not just that it's not a good time anymore for them. Like, we're looking at it like, oh, they're just always party. It's a good time for them. No, they're not stopping for the same reason a heroin addict can't stop. Because your body, my father's hands used to shake when he didn't have a drink. And that's the same effect as the painful symptoms that a heroin addict goes through.
Wow.
Actually drinking for the same reasons. So the person that we love, now my grandmother was absolutely gorgeous, was highly intelligent. My father was the sweetest man I ever knew in my life, who just adored me. And then I married my father because I saw the same look in my husband's eyes as I used to see in my father's when we were
Wow.
dating.
Lord.
But
Mm.
like you said, when, because of the alcohol, they weren't the same people.
Right.
And so I've also, one of the things I forgot to list is that I'm also a certified alcohol addiction educator.
Okay.
And one of the things we tell people is that when you're dealing with somebody like this, you're not, because I hear from clients all the time, he's just a wonderful guy. My husband's just wonderful when he's not drinking. But when he's drinking, what happens is, I just heard from a woman today, and her husband was on a rampage. He was drunk, and he was mad because she was ignoring his drunkenness, and they had 2 little children, and he was on a total rampage, and she didn't know what to do. Her father had to come over and get her children and get them out of harm's way. Her father called the police because she's not willing to call the police. It's her husband. I don't want him to go to jail. I love him. I'm not sure what state she lived in. I didn't even ask her because it doesn't matter.
Right.
But the police, so her father called the police because she wouldn't. And she says, her husband's a legal gun owner, but she still has no concept that when he's rampaging like that and he's a gun owner, you are in danger. This is what domestic violence fatalities look like.
Mm-hmm.
But I love him and I don't want him to go to jail. And so, she's terrified. But at the same time, she's more committed to him not getting hurt than to herself.
Right. Wow.
So the name of my book is Butterfly Rising, A Journey to Love, Healing, and Freedom from the Cocoon of Codependency. And that's what codependency is. When you protect them, when you don't, she's not willing to let him suffer the consequences of just making her and her children's life a living hell. And she's protecting him. And now she's trying to get him out of jail. Today, she's trying to get him out of jail. And this is not his first time having a warrant. And if her father hadn't called the police and he lunged her father, and the police stepped in and he tussled with the police officer. It was nothing that he did to her or her father that got him arrested. It was him lunging at the police officer, acting out and tussling with the police officer that got him arrested. So here's another gap in the system.
Wow.
They told him he has a gun. He's a gun owner. And that wasn't enough for them to do anything about it. But yet she wants him to come home. And I'm like, he's a gun owner who's a rageaholic, an alcoholic rageaholic.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be safe. So that's one of the first things I do as a recovery coach. Our first session is to set up a safety plan. Because nobody realizes, and again, because alcohol is legal and we see it as partying and having a good time, that it is behind, I would say, most of the domestic violence has some form of addiction in there.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So what was that pivotal moment where you said, you know what, I'm going to go into recovery and I'm going to make this happen?
So my husband and I now, he had several near-death experiences. He had been in ICU on a respirator a few times. And every time our family thought, okay, this is it. And also I'm going to mention, my husband was an executive vice president of a medical device company. So being a corporate wife at that level, I saw that there's a lot of drinking that goes on at that level. There's a lot. So, he was functional. They're all functional. So, but because every time he would go in the hospital in the ICU would be a time, ironically, that he would be off from work for Christmas, for he would take vacations. He never had to take off from work. He was one that, like my father, went to work every single day. They never took off. They never missed a day. They
Wow.
were so functional. So, and
Wow.
he rose all the way up the corporate ladder like this. So he had these experiences. So he wasn't drinking around us anymore. So we assumed he's not drinking anymore. But it's a very insidious and baffling disease. So you never know. So he and I are going to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico on a vacation. And we get to the airport and he's acting a little strange, but by this point, because of the drinking, he had diabetes. So I'm thinking his blood sugar was low. So he was being a little bit of a pain, but I wasn't, I was just thinking I'm going to get some orange juice in him and he'll be all right. So we get on the plane and Cabo, we live on the East Coast. So Cabo St. Lucas is on the West Coast of Mexico. So it's a 5.5 hour flight. So halfway through the flight, so I'm sitting by the window, he's in the middle, there's another guy on the aisle seat. The guy, I'm like, I'm just going to take a nap because I told the flight attendant, I think my husband's blood sugar is kind of shaky. She said, I have something for that. She gave it to him. And so I decided to close my eyes. I'm just, you get used to ignoring them, but I still didn't think he was drinking. And so I closed my eyes and all of a sudden the guy on the aisle, he starts, tapping me on the shoulder, like real urgent. And I look and my husband's having seizures on the plane. His eyes are rolling back. It's blood coming out of his mouth. He's having shock, like he's being electric shocked. And the flight attendant, she just freaked out for a minute. I mean, she didn't holler anything. She just saw it. I pushed the button and she saw it and she ran. And so she found a EMT, an emergency medical technician, and a dentist on the plane. Those were the only medical professionals. And they came to help me out. And so they asked me, they said, does he drink? And I thought that was interesting because there was nothing but as medical professionals, they were aware. So the plane had to make an emergency landing.
Oh, wow.
And they dropped us in Newark and they told us, and they had all the ambulances, everything right on where we landed at the gate. And they said, look, they're going to rush the plane. They're going to put him on the gurney. You're going to run out. You better keep up. And he's having seizures all the way while everybody in the airport is looking. It was horrifying. So anyway, we spent 7 weeks. I finally got him into a rehab, but he was in ICU again. It wasn't the first time. And, totally, they have to always put him in induced coma and they have to detox him and all. And it was a total shock because I didn't know he was drinking, but the emergency room doctor told me this is what's called alcohol withdrawal symptoms. I never heard of that before.
Wow.
So thank goodness I immediately called his job and he had employee assistance benefits. So I called them and they got him a bed in a rehab right there in Houston immediately. Nice. They said, we're going to keep this bed open for you. And whenever he's ready to come out of the hospital. So he was in the hospital for 5 weeks and I had to beg the doctors to really talk to him and explain to him he needs to go because he's not going to do it if I say it. So I get him into rehab. We get him to agree to 30 days. And I had to fly back home. I had stuff to take care of at home. I couldn't stay another 2 weeks. But I went through the orientation and I was working with his alcohol counselor. And after 2 weeks, he checked himself out.
Wow.
So the alcohol counselor calls me and said, look, your husband's checking himself out. And I told him what I'm telling you, if he leaves now, he's going to die.
Wow.
but they have to let a grown person, they can't hold you out.
Mm-hmm. Right, right, right.
So
That's the bad part.
that's the bad part. So the next morning, I woke up and I could not move. I was totally like I was straitjacketed in my bed. And then I heard screaming, I heard wailing, and I'm thinking, who is that? And I realized it's me. And I was like that in that position for I can't even tell you how long.
Wow.
I had a mini breakdown because I had been through this situation with the being on ICU, not knowing, seeing you hooked up to all kind of machines, not knowing if you're gonna live or die, and then
Mm.
getting up and going back to work like nothing,
Like nothing happened.
like nothing happened, and not knowing what to do, trying everything in a book. And fortunately, I had always told my doctor about the situation at home because my blood pressure was always through the roof. I had uncontrolled weight gain. So she understood the stress. And I tell clients all the time that tell your doctor what's going on. You need to be able to tell somebody
Right. You have
because
to.
I didn't know that all the high blood pressure and everything being out of control was the stress. And especially, again, this was my third generation of loved one who I was dealing with. So it seems like, oh, it's just alcohol and everybody does it. And, it's just this. No. And it's not just that they're being drunk and obnoxious. It's that it's just chaos and dysfunction in your life. So I knew to call my doctor right away. Once I was able to get to my phone, I mean, the wailing really, I couldn't believe I was hearing myself.
What
And
caused that?
it was a mini breakdown. It was emotions that finally were bottled up. So she made an appointment for me right away. When I got in, she diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress. That's what caused that.
Wow.
And I never had any idea that that could happen from somebody else having a drinking problem and from 3 generations of this. And that was the pivotal moment for me. I said, I'm not going to let this take me out because my doctor told me, you're constantly sitting in the hospital. You're constantly running somebody. You're always in fight or flight. And this all just came down on you like a ton of bricks. And
Wow.
that's when I decided, because what we do as family members is always try to change the other person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My doctor had told me a long time ago to do Al-Anon. And I did it, but I didn't have the right attitude. My attitude was, why am I getting help? I'm not the one with the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? I did have a problem.
You was in denial at the moment.
Exactly.
Wow.
I
So
did have a problem.
how did podcasting come into place? Like what's a personal experience that made you realize that your voice was needed to amplify speaking and podcasting?
So, so first I put together my own recovery program and I stopped being resistant to getting help. I had seen some therapists before, but this time I worked at that same employee assistance to get me the right therapist to work with me on this. I went to Codependence Anonymous. I really worked on myself this time. And part of it was I had a long career in journalism. And so a couple of years, so I was writing a book about my experience. That was the first thing I did because I was a writer. I was a print journalist. So the first thing I did was decide to write a book as I was healing in my own recovery. In the meantime, my husband passed. He stopped drinking after that. He wasn't drinking again, but his health deteriorated from all the damage that had already been done. And so he passed, but I was able to bring peace to our home and to our relationship through my recovery. And I think that helped him stay sober also. Now, I think he may have been, they sneak, so I don't know. But I just know that we didn't land in the hospital anymore for the years after that.
Wow.
And then so then in 2020, just before the pandemic started, my mother passed. My husband had passed a
Wow.
few years earlier, then my mother passed. So I belong to a group called Sisters Connect. And the founder of that, Kimberly Sumter, she had been a radio person in her previous career. So she decided she was going to teach a podcasting class, everything you want to know from A to Z to podcasting. So we paid her to teach this. And I'm thinking, okay, this is natural for me because I'm already a journalist. And I've written the book. I was still writing. I don't think my book was published yet. And I said, okay, so this is still in my skill set, in my wheelhouse. So we paid her to take this class. It was going to be one Saturday. Well, the first Saturday of the shutdown for the pandemic was that Saturday. So
Oh, wow.
we had to cancel the class. But she ended up putting together a 30-day program online that we did. And if we had our podcast out and ready that the 30th day, we didn't have to pay her anymore and take any more classes. So I was one of her first students that had my podcast go live that 30th day. And
Wow.
we had our graduation, and it has been, it's an interview show. And I interview all kind of professionals, people in the industry, not just professionals, family members, recovered addicts, all kind of people. And we address issues that families deal with and try to help them give them some guidance on how they can handle situations. So it goes along with my book, my coaching, and it's a great tool. It's a great, great tool.
Nice. So I'm gonna ask you a few out of the box questions. If your podcast, if your podcast microphone could talk, what would it say about the people you've interviewed?
It would say that there is hope, but the main thing it would say is that there's just a lack of education. That's what the podcast is about, educating people. None of us understand what's going on. When it was my grandmother and my father, I was a kid, but I heard all the whispers and the head shaking. And, my mother and my paternal grandmother, they used to teach me how to take advantage of my father when he was drunk to get money out of it to give to them. They treated him like a silly fool.
Wow.
And everybody loved him. He was a great guy, but he just had this issue. So people, nobody knows what to do. We fuss, we argue, we shame, we blame. We holler and scream, why won't you stop? Why are you doing this to us? So my podcast addresses why that's not the way to approach it. Even if we know we want to help our loved ones, that's not helping. That's not helping. But there is a way to help, and education is that way to help.
So I've learned a lot just sitting here listening to your story that I didn't know. I didn't know that being an alcoholic was identical to being on heroin. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was the same reactions to everything and it was that bad and that harsh on a person. So
On
just
your
me sitting
bodies.
here
Yeah.
listening, I learned a lot just with that. But that's why I say you can't judge people, by the cover of their book. You can't.
Yeah,
You really
right.
can't because you really don't know what they're going through internally or around them or period. And it's like you
Yeah.
said, your husband was a good person, your dad was a good person, but they just had this issue they just could not shake.
And it's an issue. What people also don't understand is they have internal wounds and trauma that they're trying to numb and anesthetize. So they're not drinking. That's where it goes beyond the rest of us who can have a glass of wine and stop and be
Yes.
fine. They
Yes.
have internal wounds, experiences we may not know about. And
Mhm.
once that's what they're, we in the recovery field, it says the alcohol is not the problem for the alcoholic, it's the solution. For them, the
Mhm.
addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol, is not the problem. For them, they're dealing with it as the solution to their real problem,
Mhm.
which is insecurity, trauma, fear.
And a lot of us can't deal with things, like others. Some are stronger, some have tougher skin. You know,
Yes.
we all turn to something, to, like you said, ease the pain or numb the pain.
Well, I feel like my mother and I were lucky because when you grow up with that, then it's natural for you to think that, if once you're struggling, well, I'm going to drink and have a drink. I'm going to depend on alcohol because that's what I saw in my family, but apparently we just didn't have that predisposition. And we were very fortunate in that way because a lot of people, I mean, I have worked with people who they have a father, they have a sister, they have, it just goes through the family.
Right, right. So I'm down to two more questions. Two more questions for you. If your healing journey had a soundtrack, what would be the title of that track and why?
Oh boy. I had to give that some thought. I saw you said favorite song. And there is one, but it's just not coming to me right now. But I will tell you that it was less, what I used wasn't a soundtrack, it was meditation. That
Mm,
was the thing. It was silence, actually, not a soundtrack, but it was silence. It was meditation. And I went away to a Deepak Chopra emotional wellness retreat and learned to meditate. And that was really the most healing thing, to meditate and to journal, to write out my feelings about what my experience has been. And so I could stop blaming somebody else and really examine my own self and accept the people I love where they are. And I tell people all the time also, we can't blame everybody else for our happiness.
no, ma'am.
We, like the woman that I mentioned earlier, her husband had a gun and all this, but she has to empower herself. But she's surrendering her power to him. I just want him to. I don't want him to feel bad and be in jail. that was his. That was his choice. But empower yourself. And so when I sat in silence, um, that helped me more than any soundtrack, anything in my ear, nothing coming from the outside really
Wow.
could help me. It was trusting my intuition. We're women, we have intuition, and just relying on that.
So now I gotta ask this question because I hear a lot of people talk about meditation. Does it really work?
Yes, you have to be, first of all, you have to be open to it. You have to be open. You have to understand it's not a religion. It's not, you can be Christian and meditation and prayer. Those are the three things I did. And that's what I tell in my book. My recovery was about meditation, prayer, and journaling. Those were the three tools that I used. But we live in a society and a culture where there's just noise all around us
All the
all the
time.
time.
Whew.
So learning to sit there, and one thing Deepak Chopra told us was that at the beginning, the tears just come when you sit. I got out all that stress that led to that PTSD diagnosis. Let the tears come. It's a cleansing. It's
Wow.
a cleansing, but I had nothing on the outside to depend on. I depended on, I actually got in touch with the God inside of me.
Mm.
That God wasn't outside of me in this situation, because I had been praying for God. Why don't you just make them stop? Why don't you? But what I found out was people in recovery for addiction, they also have to get in touch with God inside of them. The drugs and the alcohol are outside substances
Mm-hmm.
that they're trying to heal inner wounds with. But once you get introduced to God on the inside, and that's where that personal relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do that in the silence of meditation.
Wow. Now I like the way you wrote that down. The God within you. I
Yes.
never thought about it that way.
He's
But you're
always
absolutely right.
there. That's right. Always there, whether you acknowledge him or not, and always ready and willing. Always there. Never leaves.
Nice. So my last question for you. What's the legacy that you hope your words, spoken or written, will leave behind for, people in recovery or in the wellness space?
I really, really want as many family members to be healed, as many loved ones, boyfriend, girlfriend, siblings, husbands go through a lot with wives who have addiction issues. But I just want to be a healing force and a divine conduit for people's healing. That's it's very purpose driven for me, and I have I'm conflicted sometimes because I got to make money too.
Right, right. So I gotta make money. Oh man.
But that, yes, a healer, just Gail Ferguson Jones, the healer.
All right, so now we're down to the 30 seconds of fame where the light is on you. So I'm gonna do the countdown, and then when we come back, you're gonna be up here by yourself. Let them know how to get that amazing book, how
Okay.
to get in touch with you on all levels, on all platforms. Okay. So after the
Okay.
countdown, the light is on you.
All right, people, you can follow me on Instagram, Breaking Bread, no G, underscore 2020. And also, you can follow me on YouTube, Breaking Bread, no G, no spaces in between, underscore 2020 as well. And my podcast usually airs every Sunday, 8:30 p.m. So look out for that. And the advice I would give for podcasters is be authentic, be yourself. Of course, watch other podcasters to see what certain things you can use to help you shine, to help you wield your craft in a way. Don't copy nobody, be original and have a purpose. If you're just doing this just to do it, most likely it's really not going to work out for you. You understand? Because I feel the authenticity that you bring to podcasting will ultimately make you who you are.
Hello, I'm Gail Ferguson Jones, and you can find me on Instagram at Gail Ferguson Jones, also at Gail Ferguson Jones TV on YouTube. My program is called The Butterfly Effect, and butterfly is spelled Butterfly. Butterflyeffect.com is my website. And that's also the name of my podcast, The Butterfly Effect Podcast, Butterflyeffect, the Butterfly Effect Podcast on all podcast platforms. The name of my book is Butterfly Rising: A Journey to Love, Healing, and Freedom from the Cocoon of Codependency. And you can find that on Amazon in ebook and in print. It's a bestseller. And please, on all these platforms, leave a comment, a question, reach out in every way you can. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to better understand addiction and family dysfunction, and you want to recover and reclaim your power, I'm here for it. Thank you so much for listening.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on my platform. I have enjoyed your story. Your story is very powerful. And I hope you continue to break the silence on all platforms to let everybody know that this is real. This is real. This is real life, real situations, and people go through it every day.
Thank you for the opportunity to break the silence. Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you.
You're welcome. And to everybody else out there watching this amazing episode, I told y'all it was going to be good, didn't I? I told you. She has an amazing story, y'all. Amazing story. Y'all have to stay connected. Make sure you get her book. Make sure you support her. Listen, we in it to win it. We have to do it together. We all can be at the table. We just got to bring our chairs. That's it. So thank you so much for joining me for another powerful episode of Breaking the Silence. I hope that you were inspired, and I hope that you will continue to break the silence for me. And a special thanks to my guest, Ms. Gail Ferguson Jones, for allowing me to shine the light on her and showing up with her truth, her transparency, and her purpose. And of course, for breaking the silence with me. So I hope that y'all continue to be on this journey with me. And if this conversation moved you in any type of way or inspired you in any type of way or made you think a little bit deeper, because it made me think, I'd love for you to subscribe, like this episode, and share it with someone that it resonates with, because I'm sure someone needs to hear the words that she said today. So I'm your host, author Nikki Nicole, the voice of the Carolinas. And I hope that you have an amazing day. Stay inspired. Stay motivated. And use your 24 on purpose, not by default. Keep walking in purpose and never stop. And I mean never stop breaking the silence in your lives. Later.
Better days, slowly but surely it's a better space. That'll waste my mind, so I meditate till I levitate. I elevate when I learn not to hesitate. No more, keep moving forward. Chase my goals and focus more towards it. Hate the lows, but I need those to flourish. Place my goals in front, that's what's important. So I ask myself what inspires me. Breaking out of my shell, feeling yo shot quiet me. And now I'm breaking the silence like I'm Nikki Nicole. Let's go. Promise you gon' see better days. Gotta keep going till you see them. Promise you gon' see better days. You gotta keep going till you see them.